Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tuesdays with Arise and the series, our limited series on the Hebrew alphabet. I hope you've all enjoyed it so far. I've had so many people comment and so many people contact me and say how thrilled they are just to learn a little bit more about the Hebrew alphabet, and just that they're so excited about the different revelations that God is giving them through the Hebrew alphabet. So I'm really excited. I have also had a few people reach out to me and say that they would love to know more because these teachings are very short and to the point. And there is a possibility I'll do something on where we go into a little bit more detail. But there is so much detail that you could go into with every single letter, but it's also quite a lot. It's quite a lot to take in. It's quite a lot to process. So I thought to sort of lay a foundation of just really short, bite-sized teachings where you can get just an overall view, and then that can also point you in the direction. Do you want to know more? Does this interest you? Is it something that you feel God is kind of calling you into in terms of learning? Then you can make a decision for yourself whether you learn more or don't learn more. But if otherwise, I just think that it would be very intense if the lesson was longer without any kind of foundation. It would be really, really intense because there's a lot of information. And also, if I had to do a longer lesson, I would need to be like writing things. You actually need to be able to write things up as you go along so that you can show people pictorially what you're talking about, because it's quite difficult sometimes to explain it verbally, just the way I'm doing it at the moment. So that's where we are. And then also just a reminder that in no way at all are these mysteries or revelations or this sort of understanding of the Hebrew alphabet, it is in no ways an attempt to reinterpret scripture. So if ever you learn anything or read anything and it tells you, that what it says in scripture, that it doesn't actually say that, it says something different like that, I have an issue with that. To me, these sorts of lessons and these things that we're learning about the Hebrew alphabet should actually give you a deeper revelation of maybe a hidden mystery or a hidden meaning in scripture. But what scripture says is what scripture says. It's not supposed to reinterpret it or, change what it originally said or anything like that. So just so that that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from, let's show you a bit of a deeper meaning. Because they're just, as I've said to you before, there's the story that is written through the Hebrew alphabet. And the very last one I do will kind of summarize the whole story. And there's just so much beauty in it. So as an example of all of that, the next letters, every letter is an example of that. So the fact that there's just so much beauty and there's the story in the Hebrew alphabet that we get to learn. But the letter that we're going to do today is the 11th letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it is the letter Khaf. So it is pronounced Khaf or Khaf. So it is spelt with just K-A-F or K-H-A-F, depending on how you use it. And as I said, it's the 11th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And it's amazing. It's an amazing letter because the pictograph from the ancient Hebrew is actually a hand. It's like an open hand. So, or an open hand, or kind of a cupped hand, So it actually represents, or the literal meaning of kaf is hand, but it actually speaks to the palm. So it's actually the representation of the word is the palm of the hand. So that's what it speaks to. So the pictograph looks like the open hand, but the meaning is almost sort of the cupped palm of the hand. And so there's so many things that come from that meaning, apart from the fact that the literal meaning of the word is hand. It also means bend, curve, tame, or subdue. It also represents to cover over, or protect. It also represents the idea of a container, because the word kaf is also a spoon. The Hebrew word for spoon is also kaf, and the kind of the symbolism behind that is that containers, cutlery jars, containers, they're curved the shape of a container is curved underneath, which is so similar to the cupped sort of palm of a hand. So the meaning or the symbolism behind the letter also tends to represent to contain, to hold together or to form, because a container, forms the shape of whatever is, or whatever is encapsulated in a container forms the shape of the container. So it contains all of those meanings within that letter as well, which I think is just amazing. The phonetic is k, it's k as in kite, k, or ch as in bach. So it's similar to one of the other words we chatted about previously. I can't remember now which one it was, but we in South Africa, we can say the ch quite easily, but not every nation can. So the more common usage is Khaf, but it is used as Khaf in some instances. So it's k for kite or ch as in Bach. And then numerically, so remember I told you last week when we chatted about Yot, I said that up until Yot, so Yot from Aleph to Yot, those are the first 10 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and their numerical value went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we step onto the 11th letter, which is Kaf, but the numerical value of Kaf is 20. So I mentioned last week that from now on, the letters go up in multiples of 10, so 20, 30, 40, etc. So even though it's the 11th letter, the numerical value for Kaf is 20. And 20 speaks of expectancy and reward. And if you think of outstretched cupped palms, that's if you see someone, with their, it's often referred to as, the begging bowl, begging hands. But if you think of that, those begging hands come with an expectancy, an expectancy of a reward. So there's an expectancy that something will be placed inside them. So the number 20 just really, it kind of speaks to the actual letter of the Hebrew alphabet so incredibly well. Kaf comes from a root word meaning to bend or bow down. So you can see that the classical Hebrew script is said to look like the crown on the head of a prostrating king, which is amazing. Now, sometimes, I don't know if you remember, but when we looked at the letter Gimel, and, they say that the pictograph looks like a camel, and I was like, I couldn't see the camel so much in that. And some of these letters, that's why I say to you that they are said to represent that, because sometimes when I look at the letter, I'm like, okay, I can see it, but it requires a stretch of the imagination. But anyway, the Hebrew script is said to look like the crown on the head of a prostrating king, which you can see if you look at it from that perspective. I don't know that I would have seen that like just off the top of my head. And so, therefore, it is also said to represent the crown of Torah, because the word keter means crown. Again, just remembering, I do not speak Hebrew, and some of these words I've tried to learn the correct pronunciation, but if I pronounce them incorrectly, forgive me. Okay, so the word keter, K-E-T-E-R, means crown, and so the kaf is said to represent the crown of Torah, which I think is just amazing. And because it's, prostrated before the king with the crown. Then, so just the scripture that really, it's an incredible scripture. And I want you to think of it in terms of this letter Kaf, and in terms of this, it representing the palm of the hand. And again, also just a quick mention, in the story of the alphabet. So last week we looked at Yot, and Yot, remember, Yot is represented by what they're saying, by an arm or a hand. Now you have Kaf, which is represented by a hand, but it's the palm of the hand. So it's almost bringing you, down to sort of the crux of the matter, the truth of the matter, because the palm is said to contain the potential of the hand. So it's almost, that's how we go in the Hebrew alphabet from Yot to Kaf. It's an interesting story. But just one scripture that I just want to leave with you today while we talk about that is Isaiah 49 verse 16 in the Amplified Bible, which is where this letter Kaf comes in the Hebrew, obviously, but I'm going to read it to you in English, where it says, "Behold, I have indelibly imprinted, tattooed, a picture of you on the palm of each of my hands, O Zion. Your walls are continually before me. And that's what God says to us, that we are written on the palms of his hands, not just written on the palms of his hands, but our names are indelibly imprinted, tattooed on the palms of each of his hands. So when you think of the Hebrew letter Kaf, and you think of that open hand, that cut palm, just remember that scripture from Isaiah 49 verse 16, that your name is indelibly imprinted on the palms of the hands of the Most High King. So I'm going to leave that with you today. Feel free to get in touch with me. As always, all my details, contact details, are written on the screen. Any way that you would like to contact me, feel free to do so. And next week, we are going to be having a look at the letter Lamed. And Lamed is the central letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So it's a very important one. So I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Don't forget to tune into the prophetic teachings on Thursdays, though. But otherwise, we'll continue with the Hebrew alphabet next Tuesday. Love you lots. See you then. Bye.